Good morning, good day, good evening, wherever you are in the world watching at this very moment, and welcome. This is a new type of video, a potentially new playlist, which is something I've been considering for a good while. It's a mix of analysis and review, given from the perspective of an educated game designer, while at the same time also being a player. First and foremost, I'm a player, but I'm now also completed a bachelor's degree in video game design. There will, during this video, be minor spoilers, but major spoilers will be avoided to keep the soul of the game for people to experience on their own. This is also not to take anything away from the developer by showing the game in its entirety. The first part of the video, the analysis, will be as objective as possible, by looking at specific subjects like theme, genre, communication, level design, story. There will be minor notes that do have significance for the feel of the game, but will be under the quote, notes. And also some potential balancing feedback or things that, from my point of view, might be of annoyance for players. This is also something that is being used a lot in the industry with QA or during the entire design process. You have to look at both sides of it. This is going to be fun, but this might be annoying. The second part and the final part will be the subjective review, where I say my personal opinion on the game and what I liked / disliked, etc. First one is the theme. That is rather short and easy. It is Greek mythology and fantasy. They have taken inspiration from Greek mythology, but they have also sprinkled in some fantasy to create a narrative. It's been done in a rather funny way and rather interesting way that puts a new perspective on a lot of the different gods. The genre is action, roleplay, indie, and then the not directly correct but still accepted term, dungeon crawler. Now it's over to more of the nitty-gritty, the points where we can actually dig in a bit. First one is communication. And by communication, I don't mean the developers tweeting out, oh yes, hey, this game is out, this is how it works. No. Communication in game development often comes down to visual communication. How do you communicate to the player what you want them to notice, or what you want them to focus on or be drawn to? For example, bag with a skull on it. That is the store. It's a very easy way to communicate that here is where you can buy stuff. It's a bag, often used in different games. Like if there is a single seller, not like Skyrim where there's tons of them. Heart form with red markings. Increase health. So basically it's a heart shape with a plus on it. Pentagrams. Enemy spawns. As pentagrams are often synonymous with the devil and hell, Hades is also, well, running hell, just in Greek mythology. So it makes sense to have something that's easily recognizable like that to be the enemy spawns. Souls flying around. By that I mean generally souls just flying around the map that you can't interact with, but they're still there. That explains very well to the player that you are in the underworld. There are dead people here. The souls of the dead are here. There's some examples of visual communication that has been done very well, talking very well in this game. There's also every single power-up is vibrant colors and has their own symbol, depending on which god it is that helps you. Then it's over to one that is a little bit split up. It is level design. In level design, you can look at a lot of different things. First one is the overall layout of the levels, which is short and snappy, but several. There is an enormous amount of different small segments in this game. After having played it for quite a few hours, I literally stopped counting after 25. Simply because, okay, it's without a doubt way above that. Which makes every run feel fresh. It's never the same combination of levels in a row. Unless you maybe play this for 6,000 hours, and if you do, goddamn, you're a star. And you love the game, which is super amazing. I've also segmented up into early levels, middle levels, higher levels, and end game to sort of have more structure on it. The early levels is within level design, call it part 2, is amount of enemy spawns. So there's few to moderate number of enemies per level segment, which is a very big positive. It makes it easier for the player to get into it, get used to, like, okay, this is how the enemies work as a base function. These are the simpler enemies, and they will, of course, build upon that. Moderate elemental dangers, meaning there are traps around, but they are easier to see, and they're also easier to dodge, making it easier for newer players to get acclimated to the fact that there are traps around here, as well as the enemies. Middle levels, they increase, of course, the environmental dangers by hiding them a little bit better. Not a lot, but a little bit. The enemies have several spawns. There are a little bit more enemies, on top of the fact that there are new enemies. Some of the enemies that we have seen from the early levels, aka level 1 or area 1, have more effects. They have new attacks, they can have increased blast radius, they can have more projectiles, they can have dashes, etc. The middle levels, aka level area number 2, also have sort of smaller areas you can stand, but it's within reason, so it's a very good progression. It's difficult to increase without smashing you, basically, which gives a good segue for players to get into harder content and also improving in the game at a reasonable pace. Higher levels being level area 3 has quite different colors. The two previous ones have been rather gloomy, darker colors, while the next area, the third area, has more vibrant colors, lighter colors, to sort of put emphasis on this is an area that doesn't punish the inhabitants as much, which also then explains a little bit more into Greek mythology with several layers of the underworld. It's more lively visually. Stuff looks to belong within living, or at least not the damned souls area. It's more difficult to make out the attacks from the environment. Some of the environmental areas or environmental dangers looks like they belong there. It looks like They can be statues, for example, but all of a sudden you get a slap in the back of the head. Just example. More dangerous and faster enemies with both close combat and ranged attacks. Area 3 compared to Area 2 is definitely a larger step up. There are new enemies that function completely different. They also add in a lot more difficulty with the combination of ranged and melee at the same time, and certain of the developments from the earlier adds or earlier enemies. Their attacks are all of a sudden much more difficult to handle, much more dangerous, and I did find myself struggling a bit. Then we're at Endgame, or the 4th level. That one took me for a loop when it came to visuals. It's very natural colors and semi-strong lighting. As in, it reminds me more of something we could potentially see in real life. Ancient-looking visuals in form of tombs decorated with animals, artifacts, and the such that we might find in an archaeological dig site. So that one sort of gave a little bit more of real-life feel on the levels. Environmental traps are also now quite difficult to see. There are areas where all of a sudden you see something flying towards you and you don't really realize where it came from until you get a closer look, which I would say for the final sort of level area is absolutely a good idea. It is making it more difficult, and it makes it harder to actually complete the 4th and, in that sense, final area. Which plays upon the progression of the earlier stages quite well. There are new enemies that are faster and stronger, as in more health and power. Not more health or more power. Which sort of comes together quite nicely with the progression of the enemy difficulty from area 1 through 3. Now we're also into more of the parts where I don't have any visuals to show, because I don't want to give away too much of the game. I have, as you have most likely already seen, visuals of area 1 through 3, with also some of the bosses that you will meet in area 1 through 3. I think I ended up only deciding to show 2 of them to, again, keep a lot of the soul of the game still intact. I will, however, comment on some of the stuff, like I've done so far with the end game, but the final boss, I would say, is a surprise, while at the same time not being a surprise. Depends how good you are at reading into potential scenarios. And it's by far the most difficult boss of them all, using a lot more variety of attacks while using adds. Also, the intensity of the attacks is a lot higher, and also the damage is really high. More than that, I don't want to give away, simply because of potential spoiling the game, which is something I do not want to do. Then we have story. During the game you get short snippets, which gains the interest simply by giving him in small pointers. For the ones that are more interested in deeper getting into the lore, there are lore books that you gain throughout the entire playthrough, which drives some more of the story around the characters that you meet, around enemies that you meet. You also when you start up, you only meet one or two of the gods, and as you progress, you will meet more and more of them until you have the entire collection. So Artemis and Hermes, for example, you gain, I think, after completing area number 1. You have Aphrodite, you have Zeus, Poseidon, etc. And they give you specified powers based on like their sort of speciality. There are also certain items that you get which you can gift to the gods or to a specific god that will then give an artifact to you, which will also increase your power in certain ways. They all have their own little functionality. The final boss, like I said, is a surprise. It also has some story relevancy, and afterwards is just, in my opinion, a really, really, really well done ending. From what I've understood and what I've heard, you can also have several different endings, which is a very good way of keeping players interested and keeping replayability in the game. Yeah, it's truly a fulfilling story, captivating, interesting, moving at times, and all over well crafted and well represented. Some minor notes. Comedic sense absolutely exists in this game, which is super relevant in a game like this that is difficult, that will make people a little bit frustrated. But it does lighten up the mood. Upgrades from the start, those are quite minor in a sense. The upgrade system is also quite easy to understand. There are two main different ones. One which is a permanent upgrade, and the ones you get while you play, so it's different every time. Hades is also self-conscious, which I really enjoyed. The other one is, without spoiling too much, that there is a running dialogue with Olympus the entire way through that does evolve throughout the playthrough. It's reaction-based controls, high pace, store is sparsely placed out, upgrades are frequent but not too frequent, difficulty makes up for the upgrades. There are hidden upgrades, which is the ones where you gift the gods, which is called boons. They are more self-explanatory the longer in you get, and also very easy to understand once you read what they do. One thing that really took me for a loop, which absolutely is, to me, a big bonus, is bosses remember that you beat them, or that they have beaten you, which creates some quite fun dialogues. Weapons get bonuses for a currency drop, which is a good way to make people use the different weapons. There are 6 different weapons after all that you can unlock. The mirror, which is the upgrade station, gets more powers and talents the further you go, which is the permanent ones. As well as god powers can double up. From my experience, it started happening after I got to the 3rd level area for the first time, where I, for example, got Artemis and Zeus at the same time, which was really interesting. Then I only have a few negatives. It's very minor stuff, and it only happened to me a couple of times, not a lot during my entire experience with this game. There are certain areas where I feel there are some unbalanced mob spawns. In an area, for example, I got 8 different mobs that all shot projectiles that were spread in a cone, and due to their positioning, I was not able to move. I do know you can destroy the orbs by hitting them, but it literally got to a point where I had struggles with actually getting anywhere. Not being able to see enemies attack due to environmental hazards, hindrances, like smoke. Very specifically, there was an area with smoke that I ended up standing in because I wasn't aware it would cloud up my screen, and I literally could not see the enemy shoot me or hit me. Those are the two only like actually negative things that I did find. There were some stuff that annoyed me, but I am well aware that those annoyances are something I have experienced in other dungeon crawlers, and that is just me not being the biggest fan of that specific mechanic, which is something I will not hold against the game in any way, especially from the view of a developer. There are often several designers working at the same thing, and they will have different input. They will also subjectively like different things, and getting several different subjective opinions of what could work in is a good way to hit more players. Then it's my subjective review. This is gonna be a lot shorter because I don't want the video to be way too long like my Mage Tower video. Overall, this is a game that I absolutely would recommend people to play. Yes, I'm very upfront, there were minor things that annoyed me, but that is stuff that annoys me in other games as well. But the overall experience of this game was enjoyable. I truly enjoyed it. It's difficult, it is really pushing me, and I had to sit down and actually learn properly how the mechanics worked without spending, say, 50 hours learning how to fight one specific enemy. I sat there for 20 minutes, and the next time I ended up in the same scenario, I managed to handle it, but I did have to focus. I also got the sort of Dark Souls feel where I'm being stomped, but I want to continue because I really, really, really want to just smash the face of this enemy. To me, it's also very, very good that there are a deeper story. That we do get smaller snippets is kind of what captured me, especially as a lore nerd. I ended up digging more into the lore books, reading up on the enemies every time I got a new book, reading up on the other NPCs every time I got a piece of information about them, listening to every single voice line that was in the game, which are immaculate. They are so well written. And voice acting, amazing. I absolutely love the voice acting in this game. The controls were snappy, they were reactive. The only thing that held me back is that my controller is old, and I know that it's the controller that was the problem, because I know it does stop at times. So I tried a bit with the keyboard and mouse, and it was super reactive. It was really nice to play. And truly important thing in a game like this, a dungeon crawler, is that reactions happen as soon as you click. Overall, I really recommend people to play this. If you like dungeon crawlers, give it a try. It, in my opinion, is among the top ones. It really shows what a dungeon crawler should be and could be if given enough love and given enough attention from the developers. If I'm gonna give it a score out of 10, I will say I am extremely strict when it comes to 10s. It really has to be a new, like, it really has to define a new genre or define a type of story. It really is difficult to get a 10, but I will without a doubt give this a 8.5 to 9 out of 10. Recommend everyone to go play it. Recommend everyone to try it. I know you can watch playthroughs and everything, but you do not get the experience from watching playthroughs as you get by playing it. Without a doubt, go check it out. And if you enjoyed this kind of video, which is something I knew that I want to try, to like use my experience, use my education a bit, maybe if you learned something, make sure to hit that like button. Tell that YouTube algorithm that this is a video that they can recommend to others. If you have any thoughts, leave them in the comments down below. I'll be happy to read through what you guys think. And make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell because the subscribe button doesn't do what it used to. Anyway, until next time, stay sweet, stay blessed, keep playing games. D-Note out.